Hello, you are listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira.
Hi, I'm Tammy.
No, you're not.
I'm not?
No.
Am I Thomas? Hi, I'm Thomas.
I'm Tammy.
You're going to confuse everybody.
Well, sometimes I say, when we put in our names at restaurants, I go in and they say, whose name should I put down? I always say Tammy, because you're the one that gets the text when the table's ready.
That's true.
And it's kind of like, yes, my name is Tammy.
Don't I look
Yeah. My name is Sue. How do you do?
To quote Johnny Cash, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about, do your actions match your words? And when we're talking about this concept, we're primarily talking about in court. And Thomas and I both have well, obviously we share clients in a lot of respects, so we have our own clients and we have joint clients and whatever, but we have seen a lot of clients who have had this situation in court where really it's not the arguments that are being made by the client or the attorney or whatever that impact the case. It ends up being some sort of physical action, some sort of body language from the client that just ends up completely tanking the case. So you go in and you got these great arguments and you've worked and you have all this stuff laid out, and your client does something physical in the courtroom that just causes the opinion of the judge to completely
Right. It gets you to wear the black hat. Right. You get to wear, congratulations, you're wearing the black hat.
And I think the one that comes to mind for me the most that I'd like for you to tell is the one about the young guy with the custody issue.
Oh yeah, I remember him. And nice kid.
Yeah.
Nice kid, like
good
20-year-old kid.
And, yeah, really good dad, young baby, newborn.
Yeah, and we sent this kid to Family Court Services with some good coaching, and as a result, he got overnights with a less than 1-year-old child,
right? Which
I thought was just a tremendous result,
right?
So I came into court with the hot hand. I had the report,
right?
And
just to background this a little bit, the parents were never married, and the child had primarily been with mom the whole time.
She was breastfeeding.
Well, right, but I'm just saying it's not like this was a married couple where they were both in the household or anything like that. The child had primarily been with mom. So for dad to get overnights of that young a child, given that situation, was a good outcome.
Well, yeah, it was. I thought that he conducted himself pretty well in Family Court Services, and I probably should have prepared him for the hearing a little better than I did, because while mom was expressing some of her concerns about him, and I can't remember exactly what the concerns were. Typically it's he drinks too much, or he goes out and he parties, or he really doesn't watch the child, and the child toddles out the door or something like that.
Yeah, or he's dishing off his responsibility to his parents, or
and blah blah blah, attack, and,
right.
I felt pretty good about the way things were going, because normally when the other parent does that, I'm winning,
right?
And I was winning until my client rolled his eyes. Okay. The judge stopped the proceedings and she said, "I saw that, young man. I saw you roll your eyes, and what that says to me is that you don't take this seriously and you don't support mom. So we're going to suspend your overnight parenting for a while, and we're going to go with daytime visits.
We're going to delay it."
Yes.
Yeah, she delayed him and made him come back for another review hearing in like 3 months. I think I was in the courtroom when she did that, and when she said, "I saw what you just did," that's what she said. That's what the judge said. And I thought, what just happened?
Yeah.
What did he just do? Because I'm sitting behind, everybody in the, in the courts,
Yes, you don't roll your eyes in that commissioner's courtroom.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, and she didn't say, I saw you roll your eyes. She just said, I saw what you did. And so I'm out there going nuts trying to figure out what happened. And then we walked out and I said to Thomas, what was it that he did? Like, what did he do? And then he's like, he rolled his eyes, and it was kind of like, that's it? He rolled his eyes and she did all that, but she sure did.
Right, and that's kind of an extreme case.
Yeah.
And I understand the court's perspective on that.
Right.
I think she was trying to send him a message, and he ultimately did get his overnight.
Right.
But for a while there, he was wearing the black hat.
Right.
Which is unfortunate because nice kid.
Right.
Very
Right.
nice kid.
Well-
I felt like I had a sympathetic petitioner in that situation.
Yeah, well, and very good dad. I mean,
Yeah.
very much wanting to be involved, wanting to be a dad, wanting to step up to his responsibility, and so yeah, it was just unfortunate that.
And by the way, that's what the court wants you to be as a father. I think that there's a lot of mythology around. The system is biased in favor of mom, and I don't think that's true. I think that the system is biased against fathers who only care about money.
Right.
And are not willing to put forth the effort to establish their parent-child relationship.
Yeah, at least in California, I think that California is pretty progressive, where in kind of their thinking, and they realize the value that each parent brings to the table. I don't think they're particularly biased against mom or dad. I think there are
some jurisdictions where that's probably
that is still sort of a problem. Like, I grew up in Kentucky, and
right.
I don't think Kentucky's too bad, but I think there's one state that I want to say it was South Carolina or one of the East Coast states, where we had a mom that had a child, and she was from California. And anyway, we had some conversation with her, and I remember her saying that she had talked to an attorney in South Carolina, and like the South Carolina standard thing was a child below X age, mom always got primary custody.
Right.
And we don't have kind of thing here.
I've been reading a book on child welfare, and one of the points she makes is that nationwide the trend seems to be to favor biological parents, even in cases of neglect and abuse.
Right.
In other words, the court is very much concerned about parent-child relationships.
Right.
And I think that's true in almost every jurisdiction.
Right.
Unless you have some outlier.
Well, and you say biological parents, but you have adopted kids, but you just mean people that have parental rights, whether that's biological or adopted or whatever.
Yeah, it can be adoptive, but I think that, the point that I'm making is that the bias is towards involved parents.
Right. Well, I just made the comment because you said the word biological, and
right,
that your kids aren't biological,
well,
but you're still their parent.
I was drawing an inference from that.
Right.
From that, to say that they are very much concerned about parent-child relationships.
Right.
But anyway, we're digressing off the topic.
Right.
So there are many ways that you can make this mistake.
Yeah.
I find one of the big ways is interrupting. That's not true.
Right.
It's not true. No, he's lying. He's lying!
If you're listening to this episode on if you're listening to this episode on the podcast, you have to go over to YouTube and see if that little facial expression of Thomas has made it into the video, because we have a producer that sort of chops it up and does the highlights.
So yeah.
So I'm hoping that part makes it.
Mark that.
Because you got to go look at his little scrunched up face doing that sound.
Yeah. So yeah, generally speaking, when we perhaps the court is perhaps the last bastion of social order in our society.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a place where you have to respect authority.
Right.
So you have to show a certain amount of deference to the court.
Right.
And we take our turns. We
Right.
take turns. I find that a lot of attorneys with winning positions lose their case because they interrupt too much.
Right.
And my strategy is generally to let them crap all over my client.
Right.
You just, I mean, I can't stop them.
Right.
They're gonna make the argument that my client is a no good, monkey's butt.
Right.
So I let that happen, and then when it's my turn to talk, I try to be positive about my client rather than negative about their client. I mean, sometimes you have to be negative about the other parent, but in most circumstances, if you interrupt, it makes you look like it actually lends credibility to the other parent, the one that's attacking, because if you're interrupting, you look defensive. Excuse me, the best dog in the world is acting out.
The best dog in the world wants to have a little fit right now.
Yes.
Speaking of acting out, yeah.
Yes, that is not the demeanor you want to have in the courtroom.
Yes. This is not. Please don't chase your tail if you're in front of the judge. It's not a good idea.
Not a good idea.
That's what she does when she's having her fit. She chases her tail. So.
Yeah. So take your turn and wait till they're finished talking. They'll give you a chance to talk. But the court wants to appear even-handed, especially with pro pers. I find that with pro pers,
AKA self-represented people.
Yeah, the self-represented person. A lot of times, can I say something else? Sure.
Yeah, they'll say yes.
They'll almost always say yes.
Yeah.
Unless they've heard enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes they've heard enough.
Yeah.
But you don't have to worry that you're not going to be able to. Bring a notepad to court.
Mm-hmm.
And make a note of if there's something that the other party says that is not true and you want to rebut it, then make a note of it. And then when it's your turn to talk, you'll be able to, a lot of times I'm sitting there making furious notes. And really what I'm doing is I'm making a note of the things that I want to respond to. But the most persuasive arguments are a lot of times not responsive arguments, or dare I say reactive arguments.
Right.
But I like to say a lot of positive stuff about my client's parenting, and that usually helps. But on the demeanor, if you look too desperate, or there's the classic, fake sneeze, right?
Yeah. I don't think people do that in court, too.
No, nobody does that in court, but it's kind of an extreme example of what I'm talking about.
Right.
It's a gesture that accuses the other party of lying.
Discounts what the other party's saying.
Right. And that's exactly what our young man did in his custody case.
Yeah. And we had another case where it was a stay-at-home dad, and
Mm-hmm.
he had I think 3 kids, and so he was a little bit older, seasoned parent,
Yes.
Knew what he was doing, whatever. And they got in front of the judge, and I remember, because he was your client, and I remember that he would just huff, and he would
He was very emotional.
Yeah, and he would be very physically reactive to everything she was saying.
Flamboyant.
Yeah.
And I don't want to. There's nothing wrong. With that. He's a guy that had a strong feminine side, no question about it.
Yeah.
And he was very. He's the kind of guy, and I've been accused of this too.
Yeah,
so.
I was just getting ready to say this described you as well. Yes.
Yeah. This guy wears his heart on his sleeve.
Yeah, he's a very sensitive guy.
He's a sensitive guy, and so he would sit there while she was testifying or while her attorney was arguing, and he would react to things with his body language.
Right.
And we had that same commissioner that I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah.
And this, she's amazing. Nothing in that courtroom goes unnoticed.
No.
It's like,
yeah.
you in the back row.
Yeah.
Stop rolling your eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, I've gotten in trouble with her for physically reacting to something sitting
Yeah.
way back in the back. Ma'am, stop that. And it's like, oh. And then Thomas is like, was that you? And I'm like, yes, that was me. That was like early on before I knew all these things. And I wasn't even party to the case.
Yeah.
It was just a case that was going on in the courtroom.
This is how we learn.
Yes.
By
making the errors. That's right. By being called out in the courtroom by the judge.
Yeah, it's very embarrassing.
It really is.
But this case really went off the rails.
Right.
It was the subject of an ex-party, and we eventually turned it around. But just telling this guy, look, what I need you to do in court is just relax your body and look straight ahead while they're arguing.
Right.
Don't make any facial expression.
Right.
Because here's the thing. The judges are attorneys, and we're trained to be very analytical.
Right.
So we're looking for facts that support elements that are necessary to prove a certain cause of action, a certain way to apply the law to your facts. And it's a very analytical process. It involves a lot of, if A and B, therefore C.
Right.
And that's the kind of thinking. It's not the place to get emotional. I had a case recently. It was
about a year ago.
Yeah, the argument was again over some kind of schooling, and when it was the mother's attorney's chance, I mean, she just pooped all over my client.
Yeah.
He's
a horrible, awful human being.
That's what she said.
Right.
And
this wasn't just like he's a crappy dad. This is like he is the worst person walking the face of the planet.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
It's like, I mean, it's like fly with a sledgehammer type of thing. And I won, oddly enough. But after the court announced the decision, she broke down crying. Why does he always
the other client, not her attorney.
Yeah, not the attorney, and not the judge.
Yeah, and not the attorney, not either of the attorneys or the judge, but mom.
This woman thought that she could persuade this judge with a little crying fit.
Right.
And I'm telling you, never.
Right.
Never.
Right.
Yeah. There may be some judicial officer out there somewhere that responds to that kind of display, but
none that you've seen.
None that I've seen, right. And so really it's not about how you feel.
Right.
At the end of the day. It's about what are the facts and how do they apply to the law.
Right. And then the way you conduct yourself in the courtroom I think the way that this really comes into play is if the other person, like in the situation where we had the guy that was super sensitive that was wearing his heart on his sleeve, part of the argument that mom and her attorney were making was that, he didn't support her parenting and that, because he had the kids the majority of the time and the kids were having trouble transitioning to mom and dad was in the family home and dad was the person that, stayed home and did their care and all this stuff. And so the attorney and mom were saying like, oh, well, he doesn't support her parenting. He's dismissive of her concerns, blah, blah, blah. And then you got him over there huffing and shifting his body and, all those types of things. And the court's going, oh, well, the argument that mom and her attorney are making totally fit with the way he's behaving. And I think that's really, and we really started out on that case behind the 8 ball, so to speak.
That's exactly the phrase that was going through my mind.
And in a lot of coaching on just his own personal behavior, demeanor, interaction with mom,
Yeah.
communication, all that kind of
And
stuff.
what a great dad this guy is.
Yeah,
He really is.
he's fantastic dad, and like
Yeah.
you said, we were able to turn it around. But it's hard because those are really subtle things, the physical behavior,
Yeah.
but they impact the overall. And I don't think if you ask any judge, a judge would say, "Oh, well, somebody's physical behavior in court impacted my decision." No, it's not that kind of like, what am I trying to say? Like, it's more subconscious than that for the judge, I think. Is
Mhm.
just that they pick up on things and they go, you know what? This fits with what the other part is
Yeah.
saying, or it doesn't, or whatever. It's kind of a subconscious processing thing.
Right. Well, if somebody's behavior confirms what they're saying,
Right.
then that lends credibility
Right.
to them.
Right.
And if a person's behavior confirms what the other person is saying about them, that gives the other person some credibility.
Right.
And really, the battle in court is often about credibility.
Right.
It's like she says, she says X and he says Y. Which is it?
Right.
You know?
Comes down to who's more believable.
It comes down to who they believe and who they think is
Right.
bullpuckying.
Right. I mean, credibility is everything. Credibility is everything in court. The other story I wanted you to share is because this one's not related to custody. This was a restraining order hearing.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I mean, this is a recurring theme in restraining order hearings, but it's particularly so in front of this particular judge. And he's a very fine judicial officer. And in fact, to his credit, that is to the judicial officer's credit, he basically said, "Sir, I've watched you through this whole trial, and you seem like you're an angry person,
Right.
like you're bitter and angry, and that lends credibility to what wife is saying you did."
Right.
Uh,
And it was very interesting because I think that you felt like you had a really good case.
yeah.
I happened to be present when you did that trial, and
Well, that was the one I did from.
you did it from here. We were in Idaho. You did it remotely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they were
it was
doing
during the pandemic.
They were doing
Yeah.
everything remotely at that. Right. Everything was remote at that point. So we did the trip up, even though you had a trial. But because my it's this the week of Thanksgiving is also my first grandchild's birthday, and so those two always come within a few days of each other, and so we are usually in Idaho this time of year. But
Yeah, I thought we were doing pretty well, but
yeah, and I thought you were. It seemed like it was
Yeah.
going well. It seemed like a lot of the arguments were in your favor. It seemed like a lot of things she was saying was, kind of stretching the truth and not really believable. But at the end of the day, and I was glad that
and she really is. I mean, she's a piece of work, but
but at the end of the day, it was really a lot of the client's behavior on the stand. And again, one of the points I think that's important to understand about this is, Thomas and I say this a lot, like, you can have the best attorney in the world, because people always want, I want the most aggressive, or somebody with all these certifications, and I'm looking for all this stuff. And, not that there's not any credibility to that. I mean, there is. But you can have the best attorney in the world with every credential known to man. And if your behavior is counterproductive to what you're trying to accomplish, the attorney is ultimately not going to be able to solve your problem.
Right.
And I think that's
Be likable,
Yeah, I mean, and that's
Yeah.
what happened with this client. And I was really grateful that the judicial officer said, you know what? Your behavior and your anger and your things that I've observed through this whole thing are a large part of why I'm making my decision.
Like I think the best attorney in North County besides me is Pierre Demerck. And Pierre one of the things that makes him so persuasive is he's just so like, this guy's a likable. You ever spend time with this guy, you can't help you can't not like him.
Yeah, I mean, you can go into court and he can mop the floor with you, and you still come out and you like him.
Yeah.
It's just he's super nice, and
Yeah.
he's funny, and he's just
Yeah.
and he's really, really good at his job
Right.
because he loves it. He loves the court argument and all that kind of stuff.
Right. But his demeanor is likable. So yeah, that's part of it. And I think a lot of attorneys screw up their cases that way. They don't, they come across as unlikable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way, especially if you're self-represented before the court, is, you don't want to be too intense.
Right.
I mean, obviously you want to be passionate about your position.
Right.
You can't just act like you don't give a darn.
Right.
But on the other hand, if the court thinks you're a monkey's butt, they're less likely to rule in your favor.
Well, or if you're overly emotional. I mean, I think that's the hard part a lot of times, especially for self-represented people. And you've had that issue even in representing yourself in your own cases.
I'm terrible at representing myself. I'm terrible.
The emotions, right? and the thing is that these situations, it's your whole life. It's the most important pieces of your life. And so these are really critical things to you. And so people do tend to get really intense and really wanting to try to make something happen in a certain way.
Yeah.
But really, they
come off strident. They come off defensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And then that works against you in your case, just like the negative body language does.
Yeah. So the moral of the story is really, when you go to court, you generally want to be a nerd. Okay. Yeah, that's the thing about
we know
Pierre,
you don't
too.
want to be a nerd any other time of life.
Pierre, if you hear this, forgive me if this isn't your self-image, but you're a nerd.
Yeah, he's a fellow nerd.
He's a fellow nerd. He's a fellow traveler.
A lot of your fellow nerds, I hate to tell you.
Yeah, a lot of the judicial officers are nerds.
But you're talking about attorneys right now. But yeah, all of you.
Yeah, the attorneys. I mean, there are some of them that are the cool kids on the block, but those aren't the ones. I mean, you want to have a nerd.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when I first
a nerd is somebody who thinks the rule in Shelley's case is really cool.
What's that?
It's just some obscure property law from an ancient English case.
Oh, see, and I'm not the nerd. That's why I don't know what that means.
Yeah. Wow, that's interesting.
No, it's not.
The rule against perpetuities. Yeah, boy, that gets me excited.
When Thomas and I first started dating, he would go and get these discs of history lectures from the library, and he'd be sitting around.
Those are great. You can't get those anymore.
I know. Well, I think they're downloadable now, but I probably shouldn't tell you that. But I'd come in and he'd be sitting there listening to something, and it's like, what are you listening to? Oh, a history on, World War II and the blah, blah, blah. And it's like, what? You're not a history teacher. Why are you listening to that? Oh, it's interesting.
It's fascinating.
Okay. Yeah. and I'm sure there's a lot of you that feel that way. And if you do, I just want to tell you, you're probably a nerd. So.
Yeah. Right. But you want to be pretty nerdy. I tell people when they go to FCS that, they don't want the what's happening, brother kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You can tell I'm a nerd by the way I said that.
Yeah.
They want please, can you pass the mashed potatoes, or would you?
Yes.
They want somebody who is a little nerdy.
A little more formal.
Because that's who they are.
Right. And we like people that are like ourselves.
We like people who are like ourselves.
Right. And in case you don't know what FCS is, Family Court Services, it's in California. It's kind of the social worker arm of the court that makes recommendations regarding child custody. So some jurisdictions don't have that. You just deal directly with some states, I should say. Some state jurisdictions don't have that, and you go directly in front of the judge. But a lot of the states do have sort of an extra component of the court that helps with child custody issues, and that's what FCS is in California.
I remember once I had this all-day trial in front of Judge Hoy or Lewis, I guess. That
Margot. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
She's retiring this year.
Is she really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what a fantastic judge.
Yeah.
I mean, just absolutely stupendous judicial officer. And I had this trial in front of her, all-day trial, and my client shows up for the trial, and he's wearing shorts and flip-flops.
Was that in front of her? I didn't know that was in front of her.
I said to him, I don't want to say his
Yeah.
name, but I said,
Fred.
Yeah.
Fred, why are you standing here in front of me in shorts and flip flops?
He said to me, I have to be
I gotta be me.
I've got to be myself. And
doesn't Kermit the Frog say that? I gotta be me. I don't know. There's some character that says that.
Just for today, I want you to be somebody else other than you. In fact,
be a nerd. Be me.
I want you to be me. Right. I'm the guy that wears a coat and tie to church.
Right.
You know, I'm the guy that thinks he looks good in a coat and tie.
Well,
because I just think it's cool. And when I was a kid, I thought wearing a coat and tie was cool.
Because you were a nerd.
Yeah. And
you
when
do
I
look
first,
nice in the coat and tie. Let me just say.
Yeah. Well, but I'm not a. I'm not a t-shirt and flip-flops kind of guy, really.
Right. And really, the problem with that is really not about him being like you or not.
I'm wearing a tie and a leather jacket.
You are today, yes. Yeah. Which is unusual. You usually wear a coat, but it's a little colder where we are and stuff, so you wear something a little heavier. But
don't make excuses for my nerdy outfit. This is me. This is it, baby.
I don't think it's nerdy.
Yeah.
I think the leather jacket looks. I like the leather jacket. I bought it for you. So, but one of the things we do on the trip is we try
It
to
is hip to be square.
We try to overlap our we try to be able to use our outfits in multiple ways, so that's helpful. But when we're traveling, but anyway, this particular client with the shorts and flip flops, it wasn't really about him being like you or not being like you. The issue is, if you go into a courtroom where it's a formal environment with a judge that is commanding respect from their days, if you don't know what that's called, I learned that from Thomas, the little place, the lifted place that they sit.
raise the judge up, so they're up on this.
So they have authority.
Yeah, to communicate authority.
And then you're walking in shorts and flip-flops. What are you, again, back to the demeanor, and your actions. What are those actions of wearing shorts and flip-flops conveying to the judge when you walk in?
Right.
The first thing you're conveying is that you don't have respect for the courtroom or the judge.
Or the circumstances.
Or the circumstances, right. And so that automatically gets you off on a bad foot for credibility.
Lost that trial, by the way.
You lost it horribly, yeah.
Yeah.
It was really bad. And the other side was self-represented. And again, this goes back to it's not about having the best attorney in the world. I mean,
because he did have the best attorney in the world.
Yes, and not to discount Thomas's skills. It's just that the client's behavior and lying and false information was so bad that the other party was able to just come up with all this proof of all the different lies, and it was like, what can you do? Your client lied. What it's like the guy that you had a few years ago who swore up and down that he didn't drink or party, and the other lady, the wife was self-represented in this case too, and she comes in and has this big old picture of him with a big bottle of booze in his hand and his arm around some floozy, some woman, and it's just like, what can you do? There's the picture, there's the proof of it. You don't drink, but here's a picture from 2 months ago that has
an episode. Don't post your drinking binge
on Facebook.
Yeah.
On social media.
On social media.
True, that is a whole episode in and of itself. But
Don't do that.
I know, and it creates such an uphill battle for you in a court situation where as many things as you can, you want to work in your favor. So don't start doing things like wearing shorts and flip-flops to court that already create this uphill battle. You know, I've seen women kind of do the opposite extreme where they go in and they look like they're going into a nightclub.
Yeah, that's not good either.
And it's like, what do you think that's conveying to the judge? It
Right.
You know, you can't.
Right.
The courtroom is not a place where you can manipulate your judge through.
Yeah.
You
Especially
know,
if it's a female judge.
well, yeah, but I don't think that's. I think you see that more in front of women in front of male judges,
Yes.
where it's like, oh, I'll go in here, and if he sees how cute and sexy I am, he'll find for me. No, he'll find that you're a floozy and like, you know,
Right. Look at how the lady
the
attorney
female attorneys are dressing,
they
right?
dress like that.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. And not to say you can't have any color or
You-
Thomas has.
You ever notice when the criminal defendants are all like when they have a case on TV or something, these guys, what are you accused of? You're accused of 2 counts of rape and murder with special circumstance, sir. How do you plead? Not guilty. And the guy's wearing this beautiful suit. You know,
Right.
he looks like he could be the attorney in
Looks
the
like
case.
$1 million bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not to say you can't, like I said, for ladies, you know, wear color or whatever. Thomas has one opposing counsel that's a female, and she frequently shows up in skirt suits that are very vibrant colors, orange and red and blue and green and whatever. But she's in a suit.
Right, and
Yeah.
that's her thing.
That is her thing.
It's
yeah.
kind of like there's this one attorney that wears bow ties.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Or we were talking about Pierre earlier in the episode. Pierre's thing is he always wears a vest.
He has a vested suit.
Yeah.
And that's even when they're out of style.
Right. Right. Doesn't matter because it's about that's who he is.
That's his trademark.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. All right. So we hope that helps give you some ideas.
I wear different color shoes to court.
No, you don't. Only when you make a mistake in the dark. And I think that only happened one time. So usually I try to catch it. Okay, so just to wrap up this episode, just this little tidbit. We're in Idaho, and as we said before, and so I mean, I grew up in Kentucky. I'm used to a lot of like country things, whatever, you know. But we live in California now, and so I haven't seen a lot of that lately. But here, where we're staying this time, we have wild turkeys coming across the lawn every morning, about 4 or 5 of them. And we've been here for several days, and we didn't see them before Thanksgiving, but we started seeing them the day after. And Thomas said, look, it's like, it's safe to come out now. You heard his comment about turkeys a few episodes ago. We're like, turkeys? What are they talking about? That's what we're talking about. There's big glass doors, and the turkeys go by, and every time they do, the little
So the moral of the story
little
is
15-year-old Jack Russell.
don't let the turkeys get you down. Sorry.
That is the moral of the story. So,
All right.
all right.
Spotify, go on.
Yeah, you know the drill, right? Thanks for joining us. If you're listening to us on YouTube, don't forget to hit like on the video and subscribe to the channel so you get notified when new videos come out each week. If you're listening to the podcast, don't forget to rate and review us, and also subscribe to the podcast so you get noticed of each episode as it comes out each week. And thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Divorce University online podcast with your hosts, Thomas and Tammy Ferreira. For more information, visit www.divorceuniversityonline.com.